information on prevention, tools for a healthy lifestyle. Make little changes to be the best you. It's all here. A podcast empowering, informing, and motivating Bermuda to live well. Bermuda Health-Abets. Everything from A to Z on healthy living. Brought to you by the Health Promotion and Wellness Office of the Department of Health in collaboration with local health partners.
Welcome to another episode of Bermuda Health-Abets, a podcast where we discuss everything from A to Z on healthy living with the mission of empowering, informing, and motivating Bermuda residents to live well. I'm your host today, Yosifia Spence. I am the public health educator for the Health Promotion and Wellness Office at the Department of Health. Today, we have a special guest with us, Dr. Teneika Eve PhD, senior lecturer at Bermuda College. Dr. Eve, can you just give us a bit about your background?
Yes, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Good day, wherever you are, whatever time of day. Hello. A bit of my background in reference to food, is it?
Just period.
In general?
Where you come from, how your journey, how did you get here?
I am a daughter of the soil. I am a Bermudian through and through. Although my history and my roots go back to St. Kitts and Nevis, I'm born here in Bermuda. I'm also a graduate of the Bermuda College, where I studied culinary arts for a couple of years.
Okay.
Then I took my educational pursuits overseas to Johnson & Wales University and obtained a bachelor's and a master's. And then recently in 2021, I achieved my PhD in Ed Psych and my EDS as an educationalist specialist. And if anyone knows me in my day-to-day career at the Bermuda College, I'm a senior lecturer. And one of the classes that I'm most profoundly known for is culinary arts, which of course focuses on food, the history of food, and the thereabouts. So yes, that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much for coming on to the show today. What a rich background and journey. I love that. I love that you've gone through all of those points in your experience in life. So today, listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in, our Bermuda Health-Abetters, as I call you.
Hey!
And our topic, actually, we're looking at how food connects us. This is a continued series of Food Connects Us. And our focus today is food and culture. And so this is why we have Dr. Eve on to discuss how we're connected through food and culture. So what is your earliest memory related to food and Bermudian culture per se?
You know, I'm smiling as you ask this question. I'm a twin. I'm a fraternal twin.
No way.
Yes way. So I shared a crib with someone. So I can't say that this is my earliest memory, but according to my mom's story, sharing the crib with my twin, I would drink my bottle and hers.
No way.
So I believe fresh out of the womb, I think I had this inclination towards food and the love of food. And according to my mom, I shared that with my twin sister in the crib. After that, I would say from a young girl, if you can picture this, I'm of a certain age. I like to say a middle-aged woman. Yeah. I remember my grandmother and my mom had 6 kids, 3 girls, 3 boys.
Oh, wow.
And my dad's mom had 9 kids. So I've come from a pretty large family. Yeah. And with that being said, I remember my mom's mom, she would actually bake brownies and scones. And my earliest fond memories weren't necessarily the smells, but was the condition of the brown bags that those scones and brownies came in. They were dotted with fat and oil and grease marks that, I can identify that now. And I'm like, why is this brown bag a little bit darker in certain spots? Those were the spots of love from my grandmother, as I like to say. So I would say my fondest memories around food definitely involved my mother, who had to raise 6 kids, my grandmother and her goodie bags of scones. I have to laugh because my mom used to send my twin sister and I to my grandmother's house. She's like, I swear when you'll come back, you come back like 5 pounds heavier. My grandmother, like many other grandmothers, showed their love through food, right?
Yes.
So I have a lot of fond memories, even my family going to Ferry Reach cup match time, camping out for 2 and 3 days straight, picking local Bermuda mussels, my uncles picking them off.
No way.
Yeah. mussels used to be prevalent when I was little. You
Right.
can ask just about any Bermudian, mature, mid-age or older. You can just pick them up from off a ferry reach or different beaches. And I was like, what is that in that shell? And my uncle used to chase me around the beach with it. And he was
wow.
missing a finger, so I remembered that too. So when you talk about food, you're talking about many, many fond memories that not just I have experienced, but you as well, and many other
Right.
households here on the island.
No, thank you for that, because even a lot of people talk about the memory through smell, like the association with vanilla, and how
Yes.
so many people associate that with like the baking or like home cooking, right? And so it's interesting how you can draw on that. We're connected through food in so many ways, through culture, even and it impacts us in so many different ways.
I
right?
like to say that food is the one element that's non-discriminatory.
Oh
In
my
order
gosh.
to live, we must eat. And how many barriers have either fallen or have been knocked down because we need to share or break bread together?
Yes.
Yeah?
I agree. So, you know what? Why do you say food is why would you say food is important? And I feel like you just drew on a few of those things already. But just in a nutshell, why do you think food is important?
I think food is important because it signifies or it marks a moment in time. That's what I like to say. So I talked about first from the crib, although I don't remember those memories, the stories retain and they're around food. I can think about Christmas time, about my grandmother and her brown bags with the grease stain spots. Food is important because it marks a certain time in history. There are other things we might forget. I might not remember the red skirt you have on today, but if you came over to me with a chocolate chip cookie, it's highly possible I remember the smell, the taste, the texture. Food is experiential.
Yes.
And it transcends so many barriers. And so that's why food is so important. You might not remember the people's names, but you'll remember the dish that you had at your friend's house.
Yes.
I
or
lived
the dish that you
overseas,
don't want to eat again.
Or that you don't want to eat. I remember growing up, my mom used to buy this mixed vegetable pack. Come on, you all know what I'm talking about. And it had these lima beans. Now, when I was 12, 11, 10, I liked the lima bean. Try to get me to eat a lima bean now. So for me, food is important because it marks a certain time in history, or a certain space and time.
That's interesting. And what's so interesting is that it has so many, like, and it's so meaningful in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is that connection that we have through food, but even in terms of nourishment and health and what type of health you'll have, it can be, impacted by the food you eat. So that's I love how you put that. So how do you think food connects us? And and now I'm feeling like I'm being redundant because you're bringing all of this stuff to the forefront before I even.
It's natural. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. What are your thoughts on that? Aside of some of the other things that you just talked about when it comes to, those memories.
Well, since this is a health podcast, I think in Bermuda in particular, a couple of the greatest things that we're fighting health-wise is diabetes and kidney disease. So I talked about a lot of fond memories about food, but there's also an attachment to food that can be negative for us. Myself speaking, I personally identify as a junk food junkie. I'm an addict of a different sort, right? I've been that person who's eaten my food because I'm happy. I'm eating because I'm sad. There's a connectivity to food. And when I've established what it is, that food doesn't necessarily reject you, not until your body says, this is not good for you. So with that being said, there's a certain balance that has to be achieved while we're taking in this nourishment of food. Yes, we need it to live, but making the conscious decision to eat it in a way that's balanced and healthy for us, that's what I would say is the struggle for many of Bermudians and people around the world today. Ask the health insurance. What are the biggest challenges that we have? Heart disease. We have kidney disease, diabetes, you name them. And all of them, unfortunately, most of the time is related to the consumption of food.
Powerful. How do you feel food is connected to culture, though, even more specifically to Bermuda? What are some of those things that mark us as a people when it comes to food?
I'm glad you asked that. I said earlier that my family lineage comes from St. Kitts and Nevis. And you can say, in the Caribbean, they say rice and peas. Here we say peas and rice.
Yes.
Our history denotes what we eat on our table and what we're going to eat tomorrow. And with that being said, with our Caribbean influence and with my last name is Eve, if you do your research, it's actually an Old English name, right?
Okay.
Colonization, St. Kitts and Nevis, the soul pans. You can go back and do the history and the research yourself. So we have a high influence from British cuisine, Spanish cuisine, Portuguese cuisine, because of course we were discovered. And these are the people who actually came here. And of course we talk about our African ancestors who took little of anything and made it into something beautiful.
Yes.
So we talk about the rich food that we have from the cassava, from the yucca. All of that is from slavery times. Now, let's talk about 10, 15, 20 years from now. Let's talk about the hybrid of food, what's happening with food, right? There is an amalgamation. We have a lot more Asian presence in Bermuda. We have a lot more Africans. I dare to say, and many of you might agree with me, that our food is going to look totally different in about 20 years. We're going to still have the staples of the farine pie, the cut fish and potatoes, how we do it. But you can see the influence from our Indian comrades that have come to Bermuda. You can see that from the Filipinos who have come to Bermuda, and of course the Portuguese, right?
I see some fusions as well.
Yeah.
Even how they do, again, like with some of our local cuisine, like codfish and potato breakfast.
Yeah.
Or even, again, like you said, the cassava or farine pie.
It's not new.
Right? Like, I mean, I was raised vegan, actually.
Oh, wow.
And so,
come over to this side of town. Eat some meat.
No, I've actually never had meat before in my life. Never tasted it. And I think the thing for me was, by the time I was 18, I had never had meat. And I had other beliefs around,
Fair enough.
why I didn't want to eat meat. Not just for the fact that was more of a spiritual upbringing. But now for me, I'm just more open as an individual. So it's not necessarily tied to my spiritual upbringing, but it's more so tied to like my beliefs of not wanting to harm animals or other living things.
Fair
right?
enough.
So it starts to connect us in so many different ways, right? What, like, even just our beliefs around the world and how we exist and how we survive. You
And
know?
with you saying that, there are different tribes and people all around the world who believe that if you eat particular animals, that you actually embody the spirit. So it's a twofold situation. You
I
just have to
completely
pick which
agree.
side of the fence you're on and what you believe in. And I respect people's beliefs.
I completely agree with that. And the thing is you know what? I don't hold any judgment for those who do
Yeah.
eat meat, but I understand
Agreed.
why I am who I am.
Your personal
and
choice.
that's so interesting because we're talking about how food connects us. You talked about your childhood. You know, I remember my mom making. My mom baked everything. I remember waking up in the middle of the night and smelling cinnamon rolls, and I used to say to my mom, "Do you sleep?" Because I never, you're always up to me, right? She was always baking something, vegan cakes, and we didn't have chocolate, but we had carob
substitute.
candy.
Yes.
And
And it was good to you, right?
It was delicious.
Yeah.
I loved my mom. She used to make the little vanilla cookies with the thumbprint
Yes.
jam in it.
Jam
and they were
thumbprints.
vegan.
Yeah.
But I see those now here locally, and I'm like,
Vegan food has come a long way.
yeah, no, but I see them as a regular cookie, so
Yeah.
it brings back memories and me thinking, wow, like a lot of that stuff transcended even through a different type of diet or background.
You know, it's so funny. One of my fond memories as well, because my mom was a housewife. I like to say a homemaker because she made that home. She brought up those kids. Like your mom, she'd be up on a day of cup match, making the fried chicken at 4:00 in the morning, getting everything ready for her 6 kids. I remember going to primary school, and back then we had like lunch kits made out of metal. Okay, I'm dating myself. And my sister and I would go to school with fresh baked gingerbread, roasted nuts, sandwiches, all this homemade food.
That sounds delicious.
Exactly. Now, as an adult, I agree. Now, as a child, and I see everybody else bringing out the SpaghettiOs or the Chef Boyardee, I'm like, I want that. I remember being sent home on a lunch break, my sister and I, because we would give away our homemade food because we wanted to eat the canned food. But now as an adult, yeah, right, there's a lot of perspective. But now as an adult, I can appreciate the sweat and the tears that my mom and the love she put into that food.
And I love a homemade meal.
Now my teachers loved it too. They ate my mama's gingerbread and whatever else came through the door. Trust and believe. Even till today, they're like, "Hey, your mama still makes that gingerbread." Yeah, food. It's all encompassing. It really is.
Yes. How can Bermuda residents enjoy, cultural foods, but also understand the impact that food has on our health? Because we talked about our rates of diabetes, and we know that, like, say for instance, especially depending on how you make your cassava pie, butter and
sugar,
how dense it is, even just as an actual food item.
I tell you what, I think of this often because I make farine pie, and it's full of the butter and the sugar and the eggs, all of these rich fatty ingredients. It's challenging. It's not an easy answer. I think if it was that easy, our rates of diabetes would be quite low. Even for me, there's a psychological connection to food. I've heard it said 21 days of doing something repetitive will help you change your ways. Maybe that can apply to changing your appetite and your diet. I don't have the answers to that. But one thing I would encourage people to do, maybe try some substitutes. Maybe try sugar substitutes, monk fruit sugar. There's today compared to 20 years ago, you have a lot more options. And if not, eat in moderation. And that sounds so old and redundant. And if you're like me, someone's like, Teneika, have one cookie. You know, I want 4. I probably will eat 4. I have to be honest. That's something that I struggle with. I think it comes to a point where self-discipline has to be, you have to really think about where do you want to be? What is the quality of life you want to be? Because typically these things happen in middle or to later life, right?
Right.
Do you want to be someone who's fully active and vibrant? Or do you want to be someone who's broken down because you didn't have the willpower to control yourself with the sugar? And that's a debate I have with myself as a middle-aged woman. Yeah.
I think a lot of us have those challenges, you know what? So you're not alone in that. And I do myself also think about how can I bake something differently.
Yeah.
So tell me this, if you were to bake a cassava pie, just, hypothetically, we're talking about baking this cassava pie. What is a way that you would then, what substitutes or how would you put that together as a person who has a culinary background?
Right. As a culinary background, for example, one of the first steps in making cassava or farine pie, you're going to cream your sugar and your fat medium. You might want to find an alternative fat. You know, I've always wanted to try it. Perhaps substitute the butter for like coconut fat, like, coconut oil.
Yeah.
Why not cream, coconut oil at room temperature is firm.
Yes.
Why not cream the sugar with that and maybe take out the sugar and use monk sugar or another sugar substitute? That might be a great way to cut back on the sugar and the fat content. Haven't tried it, but I'd like to do it.
Okay. That's interesting.
And in reference to eggs, applesauce is a great substitute. Cuts back on the fat. You can get sugar-free applesauce, so you still get that moisture. So there's lots of different ways to substitute, but will it have those child-triggering memories and that experience? I'm not sure. So that's something you have to be open to. You can modify food in as many ways as you want, but with that being said, you have to give your palate a chance to adjust to that slight changes in the recipe.
I agree with the whole palate thing because even for myself, say if I haven't been eating much, so for my coffees, at a time period, I would try to get myself down to the least amount of sugar packets as possible, to the point where I got to 1 sugar, and there was a point in time where I was putting no sugars in my coffee, right? And I got to a point where it tasted fine to me, right? But then when I went back, when I relapsed into putting sugar into my coffee, I realized I want more sugar. But before I was fine with it, and I think that our taste buds do adjust when it comes to that. What about avocado? Would that be the replacement for the egg or the
avocado is a great fat resource, but I've never tried it. It kind of makes sense because you can use it in brownies and cakes and different items. Why don't you try it and you hit me up and let me know how it works?
These are certainly going to be things that I am going to try. Yeah. Maybe you and I could collab on something.
Yeah, maybe I get my students to test it out.
Yeah.
I can make it into a challenge, guys. This is like a cassava pie recipe. I want you to find out a way to cut back on the sugar or use substitutes for the fat and the sugar. Let's see what you come up with. Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Absolutely.
I remember them using date syrup as when I was a kid for sugar substitutes. You have substitutes like erythritol and xylitol. Those
Lots
are alcohol
of it.
sugar. There's so many options out there. But I think that moderation is also a really good tool that you describe.
And then eggs act as a binder as well. So maybe xanthan gum. There's a lot of different things you can do.
Oh, okay.
Right. But anyway, let's go on.
So can you tell us about the culinary arts program at Bermuda College?
I'd be glad to. Look, I had to sing that one out. Listen, the Bermuda College is near and dear to my heart. And at the time of this podcast, Bermuda College is actually celebrating 50 years of service to our community. Now, why is it so important? You're an alum of Bermuda College, and
yes,
so am I. So we are proud alum. And Bermuda College is the only tertiary institution on this island of Bermuda.
Yes.
And it has served many households. And for me, it's near and dear to my heart because of the hospitality culinary division. Now, Bermuda College does offer a 2-year culinary an associate's degree or diploma certificate. You can obtain either one of those from Bermuda College. And you're probably saying to yourself, what is the difference between the associates and the diploma? Well, I'm going to tell you since you asked. All right, so the diploma program, I'd like to say, is more catered to those who want to come in, get certification, right? And you want to go straight into the industry and cook. You know what? You maybe have kids, you're married. You want to get the culinary experience, you want to get all the certifications, you want to get the diploma, but you got to get back to real life and work. So that's what the diploma is well suited for. Now, let's say you're someone who wants to go overseas to university, which is something that I did. And I transferred my credits to Johnson & Wales, with whom we have an articulation agreement with. So the associate's program in the second year has more college level courses and electives. Where the second year for the diploma students is mostly cooking classes. The second year associate students have to do college level electives. It could be biology, some sort of science. It could be Spanish. It could be French. You have to do college level course math, English, and other electives that are transferable to colleges. And what's so beautiful about that is that Bermuda College has articulation agreements all over the world with different universities. And for you, the consumer, that means a credit, a C and above in your classes can transfer to these universities that we have an agreement with.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So in my case, I have a background in science from Bermuda College, and I actually went to university in Canada, and my credits were transferable, right? So
I'm telling the truth.
Yes, of course. And you know what? We're talking about how food connects us to our culture and everything. And this is history in making when you think about a local community college, right? And how actually where it's come from. I remember when Bermuda College was just getting accreditation, right? And even now, like you said, it's a lot of programs that even with some of the bachelor programs that you have through Bermuda College and so on.
Yeah, St. Mary's University and other universities. And and I'm glad you brought up accreditation. We are actually accredited by the American Culinary Federation. So we have to adhere to guidelines that say, hey, this is a top-notch place to come and get a culinary degree.
So do any of your courses include like a cultural component? Like, are there any specific courses related to that, even in terms of other cultural food backgrounds as well as Bermuda?
That's a great question. What I can say, so for example, I teach American regional cuisine, I teach Italian cuisine, and a myriad of others. My colleague, Chef Ming, teaches Caribbean cuisine. So as we're teaching these different cuisines, we're teaching the history that is attached. Does that make sense to you at all?
It makes a lot of sense. Do you have anything specifically related to Bermuda?
To Bermuda, I don't really teach the Caribbean side, but one thing I will say is that one of my lecturers, Mr. Fred Ming, has actually created a Bermuda cookbook, which is utilized in the classes quite a bit. So you should know that if you do come up to Bermuda College, you will get experience and exposed to one of our greatest chefs in Bermuda, Mr. Fred Ming. We actually utilize his cookbook in the Caribbean classroom. So, yeah.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So how can people find out more about enrolling into the culinary arts program?
Simple. 236-9000. That's the Bermuda College. And then you can ask for the recruitment officer. 236-9000. Ask for the recruitment officer, and they can give you further steps or something even more simplistic. Come and take a visit. Come and park your car. We've got plenty of parking. Come up to the college and take a gander, take a walk around. You will run into many different people on the campus that you can ask questions from security, from the information desk. If you live on the island and you're curious, I want to extend an invitation to people to come up on your lunch break, take 15, 20 minutes, walk around the campus, see what we offer, see who's there on campus, and you'd be surprised what you learn about what we offer there.
Thank you so much for that. If you had to say what your favorite food is.
Oh, gosh.
What's your favorite type of cuisine?
Does junk food constitute? No.
Just like...
Listen, if I'm being really honest, I love ice cream. We've had a good relationship, but I understand that, getting older, I have to watch, the caloric and the fat intake. I tend to lean more towards like the lasagnas. The pastas, the pizzas.
More Italian.
I would say, but I'd like to say Bermudian Italian because if some of them don't know what I did to my sauces, you know how We put like a little brown sugar here and a lot of extra herbs and the garlic powder. We cook
Some
that
of that
sauce
stuff
up.
is not Italian?
It's not strict Italian. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I'd say that I do a more Bermudian influenced Italian version. And if anybody's had my lasagna, you know what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah, I make lasagna rolls at home. They're so quick. So I just take the actual single lasagna and I put like, sometimes I make like a cream sauce with, it would be greens or broccoli and onion and mushroom in the cream sauce with cheese, so it's a creamy cheese sauce. And I put that in the middle of the lasagna
and roll it up.
The strip of lasagna and sprinkle some cheese on there.
Yeah.
Whatever meat or protein that I've used for it, because I'm plant-based, but my whole household is not plant-based. So I cook other things too. Right. And I roll that up and then I sprinkle some cheese and pour some sauce and bake that. And that's lasagna to me is one of those longer types of dishes to make, but the lasagna rolls are quick.
Nice and quick.
So I'll come home and do that for dinner. So,
there's something I also want to mention. I said Bermuda, we're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and one of the things that we have to acknowledge and bring up is the influence of seafood and fish from our fishermen, from the dolly pitchers from St. David's. You can think about. I think about fish chowder. Although I'm not a fan of it, how many people have come up eating a proper pot of fish chowder, right? So Bermuda is a dynamic place. Like many other places, we've influenced by all of the immigrants that have come in, and gratefully so. But there's something about being placed in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean by yourself, and the heavy presence that we have for the love of fish cannot be denied in our culture, in our food.
I know Wahoo and grouper. Those are two big ones that I hear people.
Wahoo and grouper. And what I can tell you that people are starting to eat a little bit more of barracuda, which is a fish that many people didn't eat, but it's actually really white and really clean. Locally? Yeah, you can fish the barracuda. There's certain times they tell you not to eat it because of the presence of metals, but there are certain times you can eat it here. It's some of the cleanest meat you'd ever eat. And think about what a barracuda eats, other fish, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
So you said fish chowder. So I know that this is not specifically like an endemic dish for Bermuda, but what is it significant about what Bermuda does to fish chowder that makes it more Bermudian?
I think the only thing that makes it, cause let's pause for a second, because if you go to Manhattan, you're going to get a Manhattan style fish chowder. It's tomato based and it's red. Now you go to New England, you're going to get a New England style like chowder, right? Cream based. You come to Bermuda,
based.
Yeah, like you would have like a clam chowder. They have heavier, more rich foods because of the climate. It's colder, denser. You come to Bermuda, we've got a tomato based fish chowder, but what makes ours slightly different from everyone else's is the introduction of that black Bermuda rum, right? That sherry pepper and rum. I don't know anywhere else that puts black rum and sherry pepper sauce in the fish chowder together to say, voila, here's my Bermuda fish chowder.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do a couple more.
Yeah.
Macaroni and cheese.
Oh my goodness, macaroni.
Because you know what? I see all different types, but sometimes people are like, this is not Bermudian macaroni.
Well, if you stop and think about it, if you go to Haiti and you have macaroni and cheese, it's a sweet macaroni and cheese, right? Now, if you talk about somebody from Trinidad and Tobago, they call it about macaroni pie, where it's a lot stodgier, it's stiffer. Then you come to Bermuda, which is a mix of American and Bermudian influence. You like it. Growing up, my mom baked hers. My students now like their macaroni really cheesy and ooey. So listen, the recipes are as long as you can imagine, but I think Bermudian style macaroni definitely has that breadcrumb on top. Or I remember growing up, the old school macaroni makers had some tomato.
I knew you were about to say that.
Now I didn't grow up that way, but I've had many macaroni and cheese from the more senior community, and I knew who made it because it had the presence of tomatoes.
That's funny because my daughter's Nana makes it, and my daughter loves her Nana's macaroni and cheese, and then she'll be like, my macaroni, she'll be like, oh, it's okay. I'm like, oh. Okay.
I actually have created a few recipe booklets myself. And I tell people, take my recipe and make your recipe. So just like in Bermuda, we use sherry pepper and black rum in our fish chowder. Or in Haiti, they've got like a more sweet macaroni because of the sugar that's in it. What can I say? I don't think there's one hard fix rule, particularly with something like macaroni and cheese. Growing up, I always saw breadcrumb and I always saw tomato here or there. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So is cassava pie more of a Caribbean dish, or is that
I believe it's more Caribbean
dish?
because it surpasses just the Caribbean. Even in South America, yuca is a staple, right? So if you think about it, it transcends the Caribbean. It goes into South America. It's in Bermuda. These are, if you can imagine, the most humble beginning or the humble meals that you can have are root vegetables, a piece of yuca, a potato. You're going to take what you've got and make it into something amazing, and that's it. That's the journey of that yuca root, right? Some people cut it up and boil it, like you use some like mashed potatoes. Different places in Africa, you're going to take that root and you're going to mash it and make it into what do they call it? It's really sticky. It's on the tip of my tongue.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
And it goes with just about any stew or whatever they make.
Yeah, it's almost like a thick cereal type thing.
It's pounded yam, if you put it in English, for example. Yeah. And you break off a piece, it's wrapped in a bowl and saran wrap. I know you guys are shouting at me through the phone, through the lines right now. It's so. But stuff like roots and vegetables, they're humble, but they've served many, 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 many communities. Yeah.
Because the last one I was going to say was pawpaw. Oh, right? Pawpaw casserole. Is that a Bermuda thing or that's a Caribbean thing?
Now, it depends on where you use the word pawpaw. Because if you go to the United States of America and you say the word pawpaw, you're talking about a fruit that ripens.
Right, papaya.
No, not papaya. No, not papaya. There's an actual fruit called pawpaw. Oh. Yeah. And then in the United States, it grows on trees. Obviously, it grows on a tree. Ding, ding, ding. Everyone, yeah. If you look it up, they call it a pawpaw. And it's a fruit that comes up, it's seasonal. And when it falls from the tree, it's ready to be eaten. The only thing is that you don't find them in the grocery store because they spoil so quick. Now, if you come over to Bermuda, we talk about papaya. You say pawpaw, you say papaya. You can say green pawpaw, whichever, all the same thing.
Right, because I was going to say, pawpaw is just a green papaya, right?
But if you're in the United States of America, depending where you're at, if you say pawpaw,
they can go about the other fruit.
They could pick up another fruit. But in Bermuda, you say pawpaw, we're automatically thinking what we're using for pawpaw casserole. Or I remember growing up, people saying if you take the green pawpaw, you boil it, you drink it, it helps to reduce your blood pressure. Yeah. Or if it ripens, when it's that bright orange color and the seeds are black as jewels in the inside, you eat the seeds, it's a great source of fiber. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because for me, I have an interesting relationship with pawpaw. Like, I don't necessarily like it boiled.
I can hear that.
And even like the casserole thing, I'm like, I don't know, you're trying to get this past me. That's like my mama putting like the Centerleaf tea inside of this big bottle of red hibiscus looking juice, and then I drink it and I'm like, something ain't right.
It make
a couple hours later.
Yeah.
But so yes, okay. So that's really interesting. Just thinking, I just wanted to think about some of the little nuanced kind of dishes that I know that we do here, and thinking about what's the difference, because I do find that in Bermuda, like macaroni and cheese might be a little sweeter.
Yeah, right? Sometimes people put sugar in it, just a little bit sometimes. Yes. Yeah, or ketchup. That's another Bermudian trademark in macaroni.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You should see her face. She is traumatized.
I heard about the stewed tomatoes, and like I've even done like the tomato thing before, trying to
duplicate it or
duplicate
something.
my daughter's Nana's macaroni and cheese. It still doesn't work. And
I can't say that the stewed tomato approach is my favorite. I'm going to be honest.
Really?
But I don't mind to put a little bit of ketchup in my cheese sauce, and it makes it a little bit, gives it a little sweetness, a little zing.
Yeah, because it gives that twangy type
a little twangy. I like that, twangy.
Oh, so you know what? I just feel like food connects us in so many different ways.
Yeah.
When we think about health, right, and think about how this impacts us, right?
Yeah.
And I just challenge our listeners to think about how you can, do some things when it comes to your foods that might be helpful when it comes to your health impact.
I will recommend baby steps. And the key word here is substitute. And you said it yourself. Let's say you drink coffee every day, and you've got like 5 teaspoons of sugar in your cup. Let's start with 3 because 5 sounds excessive to me, but that's what some people do.
Some of us use a lot of packets of sugar.
Yeah, you might want to wean yourself off maybe a pack a week, right? Just to give your taste buds a chance to actually acclimate. Another thing is substituting. So for example, I know avocado oil is a great substitute that people are using now. Find different substitutions, maybe even cooking methods. Bermudians love fried fish. Why not steam
Bake
it?
it.
Why not bake it? Everybody's in this air fryer rave.
Yeah, I'm
Put
not
it in
sure
the air
about the
fryer.
air fryers. I don't know. I
But
have to
this
do
is
some
what
more
you're going to have
research.
to do to modify. Okay,
Yes.
let's say you like ice cream like me. Did I say that out for everyone to hear? Yeah, I said it. I own it, okay?
I like ice cream too.
Yeah, I love a little Haagen-Dazs, okay? But I realized I'm getting older now. So you might not want to have ice cream twice a week, Teneika. I had to change it around and say, let's do the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time you try to eat healthier and 20% of the time you treat yourself. So maybe once a week. Now,
That's a good, I like that.
yeah, that's a good idea.
80-20 rule.
80-20 rule, yeah. So figure out what the 20 is and what that looks like in your week. 80% of the time you eat healthy. 20% of the time it becomes a treat.
And that's one thing I wanted to ask about. Ice creams, local ice creams. What would you say, like, in terms of what's the difference for Bermuda ice cream? More specifically, rum raisin, because you know what?
Oh my God. Make it make sense. I'm asking whoever's listening, make
I like
raisins,
rum raisin ice cream.
squiggly raisins have no business being up in anybody's ice cream. You understand?
I love it.
Are you serious?
Yes, I like rum raisin ice cream. I prefer coconut raisin. Raisin oatmeal cookies over chocolate chip cookies. Like that. That's me right there.
I can handle that. But I don't think that flax of anything should be an ice cream. No, just checking. But I'm the
I get
exception.
it.
I don't like cookie dough ice cream, for example. And people are like, what? You don't what?
It's the chocolate chips in it for me.
It's the texture. I don't like the melted. Yeah, but that's
but like the cookie dough filling, like the granules from the sugar.
Don't like it. But talking about the rum and raisin, I think once again the influence of the Bermuda black rum. You know what I mean? So if you just take a moment and you really think about what we're eating or what we're drinking, there's a heavy influence from the Stark and Stormies with the ginger beer, and once again there's that black rum, black seal. So rum has done a lot for us. Even the Bermuda onions. Yeah. I mean, you don't see many of them besides at Easter. And they're like, how much for a bunch of onions? Very expensive. But we've got a stamp in the world with our foods. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear about the onion thing for
Onions.
Bermuda.
And we used to export onions.
That's what I heard. I recently learned that actually.
Yeah.
That we used to export onions, which is interesting.
A really sweet onions. And I believe every Easter we used to send a bouquet of lilies over to the royal family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Bermuda, as small as we are, we're mighty. And I really believe this fusion of cuisine is going to be so much greater in the next 10, 15 years.
I think so, too. We're so multicultural.
Yeah.
So if you had to leave one thought or one piece of food for thought for our audience today to sum it up on food and culture for our listeners, what would you say?
It's what I say to my students. Have an open mind. Don't knock it until you try it. I have students who say to me, I want to be a chef. And then when I have a tasting, for example, one of the biggest fusses they make a fuss about frog legs when I bring out the frog legs. Yeah, I saw you. Exact same. And she tried to hold it together. She doesn't eat meat.
Listen, remember, I'm plant-based.
Yeah, plant-based.
So go ahead.
So with that being said, that is the one day my students' faces, their nose, their eyes are their foreheads are furrowed. I'm not tasting that. And it annoys me because I'm like, you don't realize how delicate and clean this meat is. So I like to say to people, don't knock it until you try it. Have an open mind when it comes to food. Truly, as broken and as cliche as this sounds over and over, moderation is the key, particularly for middle-aged to older people. But if you start this early, it'll be better. Try to think about the 80-20 rule. Eat well 80% of the time, which means a balanced diet, your fruits, your vegetables, smaller amounts of starch. And then on the weekends, hey, let's say we're going to have that piece of gingerbread that we like to eat or that ice cream. And that's what I'm trying to put myself through now. Now, keep in mind, I teach food every day. So I have a harder struggle. This is what I like to say to my doctors and everyone else out there, my trainers, my doctors. You wave it in front of me and you want me not eat it and taste it. So I know how hard the struggle is. But if you want a quality life, you're going to have to start embracing that 80-20. We're going to have to start doing some changes. And why not do it together? We're all in this together.
Thank you so much for that. I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your background with us and your knowledge. I think this is such an important topic because it affects us in so many different ways. I want to thank our listeners our Bermuda Health-Abetters, for coming on today and listening. Continue to tune in to our episodes because we have some interesting and highly informative episodes of Bermuda Health-Abets. So to find more episodes of Bermuda Health-Abets, you can go on to Department of Health's Facebook page, or you can go onto our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to our channels. If you have any questions or topics of interest that you would like to suggest, you can email us at healthpromotion@gov.bm. Again, that's healthpromotion@gov.bm. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. And thank you so much, Dr. Eve, for coming on.
Thank you for having me, and everyone, I'm wishing you the most with your health and your wealth and everything else. Have a great one.
You have been listening to Bermuda Health-Abets. Please note, anything you heard on this podcast is not a substitute for visiting your healthcare provider. If you have a topic or want a question answered, please contact the Health Promotion and Wellness Office of the Department of Health by emailing healthpromotion@gov.bm or by calling 278-4900. Be sure to listen out for the next episode of Bermuda Health-Abets.